Good morning, everybody. My name is Christine Brendel, and it's my pleasure to be here with you, all of you. I'm a little bit intimidated of the all-eloquent speakers before me. You know, English is not my mother tongue, so I will do my best that you could understand me. And if I'm not expressing myself, please apologize for this in before. Thanks to the Western University Center of Research and Education on Violence Against Women and Children, to FEDCO and the Canadian Labour Congress for organizing and supporting such an important event. My special thanks go to Park Macquarie and Noemi Torres, very important colleagues for the work done over the last years. First, let me briefly present my project I'm working on. What's Brevi Mujer? Violence against women is particularly widespread in the Andean region. It's one of the most violent regions in the world, like a report of the World Health Organization said. And the Ecuadorian and the German government saw that it would be useful to set up a bilateral program on the topic. Also to continue with the 8 years work carried out by the former regional project preventing violence against women, Convo Mujer. So they commissioned the Deutsche Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit, GIZ, to create a new program to tackle this particular issue. And what you can find also is we are collaborate with the three more important pillars of society: public institutions, civil society organizations, universities, and as well at the private sector entities. So my presentation will have an introduction. We are on this. And then I would ask, why should companies prevent intimate partner violence against women? How were the investigations we done conducted? And then I would share some key findings with you. And then we will have time for questions and answers for this. Okay, so you can see a timeline. When I came 2010 to Peru and we started to work with the private sector, there was no company working on intimate partner violence. Ending the program in 2018, we have worked with more than 300 enterprises directly and with about at least the double indirectly. To be able to do that, this had a lot to do what we have done with the University of San Martin de Porres. So I like to introduce that work, and here my recognition goes to the university in general and to Dr. Werner Horner and its team in special. It would be wonderful if he could be here with us today, but he is in Ireland at that moment doing some important work with Dr. Nata Duvery, a highly recognized international expert on costing violence against women. So why costing violence against women? When I started in 2010, we had some not very successful tries to contact with enterprises. We have given them information, we have made, like you can see, a conceptual framework on violence against women, but this conceptual framework was full of examples of Canada, of Australia, of the US, and the enterprises in the Andean region said, this has nothing to do with us. So we did some business meetings, things like this. They were attending, but not very successfully. So I thought, okay, we have 6 out of 10 women which are living with violence against them. There must be some consequence in the enterprise. You know that this intimate partner violence against this woman need to have some, and I need evidence. So this was my first meeting with Dr. Vara Horner, and I said, I like to have for the region some scientific enterprise to convince them that this is not a business, that this is a business case. So we started with this. At the same time of the conceptual framework, we did on demand of the Chamber of Commerce in Ecuador a piece for micro-enterprises. And in 2013, we are made the business cost of violence against women in Peru. I think this will be this was the fundamental, the cornerstone of what we have done, and I will show you later on how we have done it and what were the findings about it. Okay? So then in 2013, with lessons learned from Ecuador for micro-enterprises, which are really absolutely different to medium and large-sized enterprises, you can take them in the same procedure, you can make the same approach, and they have other consequences. We took our lessons from Ecuador and bring them back to Peru. And one of the fascinating things we have done there was we could show, and I think this is very important for everybody who works with women, we could show that economic empowerment at the first moment leads up to more violence. Because she's falling out of her traditional role, she's falling out of independency. So if you are doing programs on empowering women economically, you have to have a support so that she can come up, and then when she reaches the critical point, then you will have a sustainable development done. If not, they will fall back and they will be a lot more, it will be a lot more rougher for them than before. So economical empowerment, very often seen like a tool which helps everything. It's a good tool, but you have to do it the right way. For example, when you are doing it with the survivors of violence. So this was a very important thing, because I think it was the first time that we can show it scientifically that this is the case. You know, we all know where we are working on the issue that it might be, but this time this was a very important learning process. Then we have done business cost of violence against women in Bolivia. Then we have done 2 pieces of how to prevent violence against women. I think we have a lot of knowledge out in the whole world about responding, about attending violence, but we do not have really very long-term successful prevention approaches. And I speak of the whole world because we have done a research out from Sweden to South Africa, from Asia to Australia. So we have pieces, and I think the problem is what also the president of the Canadian Labour Congress said, is you need to change attitude. And if you are working with governments, they have only limited time. So you don't need governmental policy, you need state policy, because you need about the same policy about 15 to 20 years to really have change. And I think this is really one of our problems why we didn't progress so much until now. Okay, this was one of our learnings out of this. And then we had a scholarship program which brought a lot of talented students on board and working on this issue. It was always business administration and violence against women, what I'm talking about. Okay. Then we had the replication of the study of Peru in Paraguay. And then we said, okay, companies asked us, what can we do? And we also researched all what have done, what you have heard yesterday, and we said, and why this is not sustainable. And then we worked on a management model to prevent violence against women. This was the case Inti was showing to you. They were our pilot enterprise, because we said when we are doing only activities which are not built into the structure of enterprises, they will not have sustainability. They will depend on who is at the top. They will depend on is there some money there for them, and so on. So we did this management model on which you have heard yesterday from Noemi Torres. And then we did an illustrated conceptual framework, and this time we were very proud we can do it with examples from the region. And it had a lot more better impact on the enterprises. In 2016, we said, okay, we need to attack causes and we need to know a lot more about attitudes. So we worked with universities on two things. One was productivity, like we have done it with enterprises and their impact from violence against women. And the second one, for me, the most important in this case, the implicit acceptance of violence against women in Peru. And I only like to show you one figure with you. 88% of all students, men and women, said they are rejecting violence against women. And now comes the surprise. And 78% of them find a reason to justify it. So in reality, what you have were 10% which really are rejecting them. And I think this should really give us some important hints to when we are working about prevention strategies. Okay. Then we did costs of violence for microenterprises in Paraguay and the impact of violence against women on the job performance of teachers. And then we did a really new stuff. I think it was the first piece of study investigation. We did country costs of violence against women. Means we did private sector, we did governmental sector, and we did the impact of violence in homes. So this was really the whole part, and I think it was one of the only studies in the world which have done this whole approach. Okay, 2018 and 2019, that's where I'm now. We are doing a violence against women and the impact on the academic productivity and behavior in Ecuador. And when I am speaking about this, these are really huge primary data. I'm speaking about 20,000 to 30,000 interviews with them. And also we are doing the country cost of violence against women in Ecuador. And we are thinking for the university, it needs for the business sector an equitative management degree, where you really marry violence against women with business administration, so that future managers can come and know what they are dealing with. Okay, so the timeline you see only reflects the most important pieces of our work, and I think it would cost me a lot of time and you to discuss every investigation. Therefore, I will simply later present some key findings. And when you are interested, we have the most publications are in Spanish, but a few are also in English, and some are in German, if somebody is here who speaks German, you know. Okay, so let me, it's different. I have this one, this is another one. It doesn't matter. What is the yearly cost of violence against women in large and medium-sized enterprises in relation to GDP? Somebody has an answer for me? What could it be? 1 to 2, 2 to 5, 6 to 8? What do you say? Yeah. It's about nations lose 2 to 5 of their early GDP. For Peru, that means rough 6.7 billion US dollars. So you can think about how much this means for Canada, with a lot more workforce and a lot more industry. Okay, another question. Why should companies prevent intimate partner violence against women? Some ideas? Okay, so they should prevent it because it destroys labor productivity. It increases presentism at work, and it destroys organizational climate. Yeah, I will go through it. Okay. When I speak about absenteeism, when I speak about destroying labor productivity, I'm speaking about absenteeism, like tardiness, unjustified absence, unexpected leaves, and very often it will be necessary to change shifts. And I speak about employee turnover, includes firing or resigning, as well as hiring and training of new personnel. When I speak about increases presentism at work, what means presentism? Presentism means I'm at work, but my soul and my feelings are somewhere else. You know, they are because I'm hurt, I can't concentrate, I can't have I have a diminished or zero productivity, I have a decreased work quality, and very often it comes to work accidents because my concentration is somewhere in my body or somewhere in my mind and not on my work. Okay. And organizational climate is what are you feeling when you on your side is a coworker which has problems? How are you feeling when you hear somebody insulting on someone else, and you have a loss of security, and you also have a loss of prestige and organizational reputation when this comes to the ears and the eyes outside of the company. So these were our main questions and our main discussions before we started the investigations. So how were the investigations conducted? I will give you some initial remarks about what is meant when I'm talking about intimate partner violence against women. Violence against women is a fundamental human rights violation of pandemic proportions everywhere in every country at the world. It's really, Germany has 4 out of 10. So no country is outside of this. There are multiple forms of violence which encompasses domestic violence, sexual harassment and rape, femicide, dowry deaths, FGM, sex-selected abortion, child marriage, and so on. The universally prevalent form is intimate partner violence against women across both global north and south. In our studies, we define intimate partner violence against women as a physical, sexual, psychological, and economic violence perpetrated by an intimate ex-partner causing, and this is very important, intentional physical, mental, or economic damages. Because we are very often have a discussion between aggression and violence always is intentional. Meanwhile, aggression is somebody is attacking me and I go around and defend myself, you know? And very often we have in the surveys where men said they were victims of violence against them, to look very clearly if this was not an act of self-defense or of defense. Okay, so 4 types of violence that companies should control, and they are normally controlling them. Type 1 is external violence, means violent acts caused by externals or intruders. Type 2 is violence related to services offered, clients becoming abusive or aggressive, shouting and insulting the personnel. Type 3 is internal violence, for example, which has to do with sexual harassment and violence at the workplace. And the type 4 is intimate partner violence. In our studies, we focus mainly on the 4th type, since this is the most frequent type of violence against women. So, what was our thinking there? To create the needed evidence for companies, we started with the assumption that intimate partner violence leads to physical and emotional harm, which contributes to low productivity, and the low productivity is expressed through presenteeism, absenteeism, tardiness, and staff turnover. So I like questions. I ask you the same question we are asking us before. Does low productivity only come from survivors of violence? No. From whom else? Yes? Correct. Yes, and this is, I think, really one of the new things we have done in our studies. When I later bring you the key findings, we not only asked women, we asked the whole staff. We asked men, and we asked the co-workers. So it was really a full survey in the enterprises, including everybody. Okay. So I don't need to stay there. You know it. It's aggressors, witnesses, and female survivors of violence. So let me go to the procedure. As an example, how we are doing our investigations, and I show you the procedure we used to the study of business costs of violence against women. We did a large interliteral review, investigating different existing methods and taking into account secondary data. We review, of course, national surveys. In the case of the Peruvian study, for instance, we include the demographic poll ENDES to estimate violence against women, the household survey about life conditions and poverty, to calculate workforce, and the first economic census to estimate the labor productivity factor. And primary data is very important for our work. In the case of the Peru study, we interviewed 211 companies in the 5 economical most important cities in Peru, interviewing 208 managers, 1,309 female and 1,881 male workers. And what we have done and what we are doing, we have very large samples, which gives us a very high quality of data. And to estimate the levels of violence, we did a triangulation between the Andes analysis for female dependent workers that management reports, as well as the anonymous surveys of female survivors of violence and aggressors. And finally, to figure out costs, we used the account method, estimating lost labor productivity and including the productivity factor in our calculation. So, do you have a question here so far?
Great. So I'm so happy to talk about measurement. So I see that you're kind of triangulating data to get an estimate of costs. In terms of then follow-up later on, can you imagine repeating that?
Yes, we have. We have done it. We have repeated it. Okay. So the question, and you please correct me if I'm not right, is you are asking me that we have the data with the triangulation of the data with the primary data with second data, and if we have done this once again. This is correct? And I said, yes, we have done it once again. Always we learned a little bit, so we have done it in Bolivia, and we have done it also in Paraguay.
So one of my concerns
Yeah.
in terms of that is that once people become more aware of domestic violence, once we put in services, that one of the things that may happen is that the incident of domestic violence, self-reported and manager-reported, goes up. So the estimated costs on the second assessment are higher than the estimated costs on the first. Did you find that?
Oh, I misunderstood you. We never did a second one in the same enterprise.
Okay.
Okay, but what you are doing is a possibility, and therefore University of San Martin de Porres, we are working on an evaluation system, and a monitoring and an evaluation system for enterprises. And I'm glad to announce that the team of the University of San Martin de Porres have won the prize of IFC of the World Bank to do this piece of study.
Excellent.
But it's what you are saying without any discussion. I agree with your affirmation.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. There are any more questions? Okay, so then we are going to the key findings. I won't repeat all the numbers you see, but I would like to highlight some. There are marginal differences between the group of men and women. And it was very astonished for us that 23 out of 10 of 100 women said they are violated, and that 25 out of 100 men that they are attacking their partners. And we can find similar numbers always. It's not always the same, but there are really, that what women are saying and that what men are saying is nearby. Let me say this. Okay. And it's this maybe for interest for people which are doing investigations. We are doing an anonymous, self-reported survey. So we are coming, we are gathering together the staff, and they are filling out some questionnaires without doing any names, nothing, only by gender, you know? Okay, and we have different questionnaires for women and for men. Because we have learned also at the first time, men were lying to us horribly, so we had to redirect our questions so that they were able to say the truth without feeling bad. Okay. What I also like that you are looking at is there is a huge number of witnesses, 531,000. And we just should ask what they are doing. You know, we have a lot more witnesses than we have victims and survivors of violence, and I think this might be a really big potential when we are working with enterprises or when we are working on the sea. So I think therefore for Barb also, we are trying to really look more in prevention strategies, how we can get community, let me name it like this, to be more help. Okay. Another thing was 92 out of 100 managers said that intimate partner violence has affected productivity. And you remember the slide, why companies should prevent intimate partner violence against women? These numbers here answered this question. But Peruvian managers detect only 1 out of 10 cases. So if there is somebody working at human resources, very often, and I think Noemi can tell this, and she said it yesterday, to human resources, there are coming the really obvious cases of violence against women. But the co-workers, the colleagues, they know everybody. So we find out that co-workers know 10, and the managers only detect 1 out of 10 cases. And I think this is also a very important number. It's not a number about the enterprise. It's a number about victims and perpetrators. They are losing also 1 salary per year because of violence against women. And like my speakers before said, you lose it. And men, because men is higher than women, because in Peru, they earn more money. So the loss for them, then they are higher. And in presentism, for example, men cost enterprise $100 more per month than a victim. Because we were very concerned when we are doing these studies, then enterprises will say, we are not employing more women, we are employing because they are a really high factor. So we really looked into the cost of perpetrators to see what really is happening. Okay. To summarize the findings of the Peruvian study, intimate partner violence against women causes an astounding loss of $6.7 billion per year, only for large and medium-sized enterprises. And you can see all that costs of co-workers, witnesses, laid off, and still unemployed people. And also here, managers only see the tip of the iceberg. They see tardiness, they see a little bit of employee turnover and absenteeism, but they don't see presentism, and they are not counting in the lost labor force, which are really is very, very important. So I spoke to you of 3 studies. So you can find here that it's comparing. Peru is 3.7 out of GDP, Bolivia 6.5, and Paraguay 2.4. Because Paraguay is lower, it's a mainly agricultural country, so they don't have so much medium and large-sized enterprises which are contributing to GDP. And you see, it's not only the money. There are, and in the case of Peru, 70 million days lost, and you have a lost workforce about 170,000 people per year. In Peru, it's about, in Bolivia, it's about it's not the number, I can say it, it's 180,000 lost workforce. And what I tell you before, for all this study, we have about more than 20,000 workers survived. Okay. And I'm at the end.